The Ministerium für Staatssicherheit, also called Stasi, was the secret service of East Germany and was the largest secret police organization in the history of humanity. This video will give you an understanding of the East German Secret Service. Hi and welcome to another East Germany Investigated video. When talking about the history of East Germany, it is impossible not to mention the Stasi. Because of its size and activities, the East German state security had a big influence in East Germany's everyday life and was feared by the people. And because the list of interesting historical facts about the Stasi is so long, it is impossible to cover all this information in one video. Therefore, in this video, which will be the first of a series, I will start with a basic understanding, giving an idea of the organization of the Ministry of State Security, its size, the people, the leaders, and its main activities. In February 1950, the East German government decided to form a Ministry of State Security in order to, as they stated, stop the activities of the enemies of the Republic. A number of secret police activities had already existed since 1945, the end of the Second World War, and were fully led by the Soviets. After approval from Stalin, in May 1949, which is the same month when East Germany, the German Democratic Republic, was founded, the Hauptverwaltung zum Schutze der Volkswirtschaft, the main administration for the protection of the economy, was established. 1 year later, this organization was turned into the Ministerium für Staatssicherheit, the Ministry of State Security, also called MfS or Stasi. The new East German ministry was structured according to the Soviet Ministry of State Security, the MGB, a predecessor of the KGB. Its main departments were counter-espionage, sabotage and subversion. Wilhelm Zaisser was appointed minister and Erich Mielke became his deputy. Both had known each other since the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s, where Zaisser was Mielke's commander. In July 1953, Zaisser was fired due to internal political power struggle. Ernst Wohlweber, an expert in ship sabotage, took his place. Mielke remained the number 2. Till November 1957, when Wohlweber did not return after recovering from a heart attack. Mielke was appointed Minister of State Security, and he would keep that position for almost 33 years, till November 1989, just 2 days before the Berlin Wall crumbled. Until mid-1950s, the Stasi was totally controlled by the Soviets. By the way, also other communist states got their institutes to secure the power of the communist parties with Soviet support. In 1957, when Mielke became Minister of State Security and the Stasi had established itself to a more stable organization, the KGB officially handed over their command to East Germany. But in real life, the KGB was still well represented in the German Democratic Republic, having access to all Stasi information. Next to Moscow, the biggest KGB division could be found in East Germany. Beginning of the 1980s, the East German KGB staff amounted to about 2,500. A large number, partially because also the KGB espionage operations in Western Europe were controlled out of East Germany. Speaking of staffing, in 1953, so 3 years after its founding, the Stasi already had 10,000 employees. At the end, in 1989, 91,000 people were full-time employed by the ministry. This meant there was one MFS official per 180 GDR citizens. Compared to the Soviet Union, there they had one KGB official per 595 citizens. On top of the officially employed employees, the Stasi had recruited at least 174,000 informers, the so-called unofficial employees, inoffizielle Mitarbeiter. Becoming an informer was not always a voluntary act. The Stasi often applied pressure when recruiting these people, that sometimes were forced to spy on their friends or even their own spouse. East German state security covered a lot of tasks that in other countries were carried out by the police, the army or other civil institutions. The huge number of official and unofficial agents is what makes the Stasi differ from all other intelligence services in the world. To get an idea of their businesses, here's a few of the Stasi departments, including the number of employees at the end of the 1980s. Hauptabteilung 6, Main Department 6, was one of the departments with the largest number of staff, more than 7,500. It was responsible for passport control, where the employees wore uniforms of the border troops as a disguise, as mentioned in this video about the border crossing Marienborn. Main Department 6 was also closely observing the travel movements within the GDR, including the transit roads to West Berlin. They were also monitoring the West Berlin airports and the West German border crossings. Another task was preventing attempts to escape the country. In doing so, they monitored the contacts of the GDR citizens to the west, and they kept a close eye on what happened at travel agencies. Main Department 6 also had the task to track down escape helpers. Wolfgang Welsch was a political prisoner and released to West Germany in 1971, being part of a so-called prisoner's ransom, after which he started helping other people to escape from the GDR. The Stasi tracked him down and its Main Department 6 staff made 3 attempts to assassinate Wolfgang Welsch. HVA, Hauptverwaltung Aufklärung, Directorate A, the main administration for foreign intelligence, was the Foreign Espionage Department. Most years of its existence, during 34 years, it was led by Markus Wolf, who stated that his people worked for the preservation of peace. That the activities of Directorate A were frequently everything but peaceful is something worth a separate video. Hauptverwaltung Aufklärung is said to be one of the best functioning foreign intelligence services of that time. Almost 4,000 employees were working for the Directorate. Hauptabteilung Personenschutz. This department was responsible for the personal protection of the high government officials, including their guests. Its employees, in total there were almost 3,500, also took care of the safety of the leading representatives and their families in Wandlitz, which is the settlement where they lived. Hauptabteilung 8, Main Department 8, Beobachtung und Ermittlung. Observation and investigation was to conduct observations, investigations, searches and arrests on behalf of other Stasi departments. Their standard methods included recording telephone calls, covertly photographing, video surveillance, covert home searches and forced entry into foreign objects. The almost 4,500 employees of Main Department 8 operated both in East and West. Also attacks and kidnappings belonged to their tasks. The Stasi even had its own university, the Juristische Hochschule in Potsdam, where you also could obtain a doctorate. The main part of all doctoral theses, however, did not have any scientific value. The dissertations were also kept secret, which is against the basic principles of science. However, despite of attempts of critics, in unified Germany, the doctorates are still legally valid. The Stasi's function was referred to as being the shield and sword of the party, Schild und Schwert der Partei. This had also been copied from the Soviet Union. Today, shield and sword are also the symbols of the Russian FSB, the successor of the KGB. Shield and sword made clear that the Stasi existed to serve the party, being the SED, Sozialistische Einheitspartei Deutschland, the Socialist Unit Party of Germany, and that in doing so they could act above the law. In its function being a shield, the Stasi had a role to protect the party from all possible kinds of attacks, and as a sword, that it had to destroy everything that was hindering the achievement of the party's political goals. In the almost 40 years of its existence, the methods of the Stasi got more psychologically refined. A very infamous technique was used more and more in the 1970s and was called Zersetzung, which literally means chemical decomposition. In this case, however, it can be translated as subversion. It meant that opposition groups or individual people would be influenced in such a way that by means of psychological manipulation, the oppositional activities would be reduced or completely stopped. There was a number of ways how the Stasi achieved this. To mention a few: destroying someone's reputation by spreading what we nowadays call fake news, or by simply exposing someone's secrets. Making it look like a person is a Stasi informer by, for example, spreading rumors about MFS activities, or by sending fake meeting invitations so that he or she would not be trusted anymore and be expelled from the group. Influencing someone's professional life by arranging failures that affected a person's career. All these manipulations could be combined with psychological terror by acts of violence and threats. More than 111 kilometers, 68 miles of Stasi files still exist. A part of the files had been shredded and destroyed in 1989 and 1990. Up to today, still 16,000 bags containing hand-torn paper documents are still being reconstructed. After the German reunification, it was discussed whether the files should be made open to the public. On one hand, the people should have the right to know if they had a file. On the other hand, there was a fear of retaliation and that the people would start go hunting former Stasi officials. At the end of 1991, it was decided to give access to the files whereby all names mentioned in the files will be blackened. 7.5 million requests have been made since then, and millions of people have already taken a look in their Stasi file. There's a couple of interesting books on the Stasi, also available in English. I will share the links in the description. Stay tuned for the next video and feel free to subscribe, which will be a great support for this channel. Thanks for watching.